Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Get a Raid. I'm taking a look at PTR fights for the upcoming Siege of Orgrimmar raid, and we'll be putting up as many raid guides as possible. As always with PTR testing, the bugs will be plentiful and tuning will be off, so keep that in mind. Next up is Immerseus. I got a good solid 2 hours pulling this boss, so I have a good feel about what this fight is about. While we didn't down it, we did get pretty close and hit the enrage a couple times with a few DPS dead. And by the way, the enrage is at 10 minutes, and it's colorful. The basic premise of this fight is that you are trying to cleanse this water spirit of corruption. He starts with 100 corruption and around 74 million health. Every time you bring his health down to nothing, he splits into a bunch of adds. For every add you manage well, his corruption goes down by 1. When all the adds are killed or absorbed back into him, he will heal up to the percentage of health that is his new corruption level and start fighting again. So, if you kill 20 corruption off of him, he will be at 80% when he comes back at you. Now, notice I said that for every add you manage well, you reduce his corruption. What I mean by that is there are 2 types of adds. Ones that you DPS down like every other fight, but there are adds that you have your healers heal up to full. Those count against his corruption too. We'll get to that transition phase in a minute, but let's first talk about his normal phase. 2 tanks are probably required because of Corrosive Blast. It does 600k shadow damage and gives you a stacking debuff that makes you take 100% more shadow damage per stack. I will note that this is a Kono ability, so both tanks are in front of the boss, they'll both get a stack. That's bad, so you at least want the tanks to be separated by some degree. I've seen tanks take 2 or even 3 stacks of this debuff with cooldowns, but it's probably just safest to 2-tank it and swap off. During this normal phase, everyone in the raid will have to deal with Sha pools. Every 6 seconds or so, a pool will spawn underneath you and tick for 70k damage. It is completely unavoidable damage that you just have to move for as quickly as possible. The only other ability he does during the fight is called Swirl. He will spawn a bunch of moving, tainted pools. If you get hit by one, you take some damage and get knocked into the air. They were kind of buggy, as sometimes you would only get hit once, and other times you take 5 hits from them and die right away. Just avoid them if you can. During Swirl, the boss also shoots out water in front of him that knocks you back. It hurts, but it isn't deadly, so if you need to retain your raid positioning, you may just want to eat the damage and watch that you don't get knocked back into any bad pools. That normal phase continues until you get his health down to 0, and then he splits. DPS, your priority is to kill off Sha puddle adds. They can be slowed and knocked back, but probably not stunned from what I saw. You'll likely want to be spread around the room and killing off as many of these as you can. Each DPSer can probably handle 2 to 3, depending on their spawn points. I will note that when you kill off a Sha puddle, it explodes in a small radius for 70k damage. One thing I didn't know is that if you eat that damage, you get a stacking buff that lets you do 25% more damage to other Sha puddles. Presumably, this is to help you get more of them down per transition phase. Healers, here's your fun part. There are another type of adds called Contaminated Puddles. If you heal these up to full, they will merge into Immerseus and remove 1 corruption from him. It also gives you a healing buff if you stand near the puddle when it reaches full health. It's a significant buff, 75% more healing plus 25% mana restored. The healers in the group I was running with said the best way to get the buff was to try and line yourself up with the path of a puddle, heal it up, and then run towards it just as it was getting to full. Healers can probably get 1 to 2 puddles up. The bad part of this phase is that for every puddle that reaches him, he will explode on the raid for a decent chunk of damage, up to 70k for each puddle. This can get huge if all of them in the area are allowed to hit at the same time, which is why it is at least important to slow and knock back many puddles, and of course kill off a lot of Sha puddles. Obviously, this is the time for raid CDs along with personal CDs. I used deterrence just as I saw the puddles reach him and avoided a lot of damage. Everyone should be aware that when this happens, the phase is about to end. After all the puddles are killed or merged back in, we go back to normal mode, and like I said, the more corruption you take off of him by killing or healing adds, the less health he starts the next phase with. His abilities don't change at all, and he just does everything all over again. Keep killing him and cleansing off the corruption, and you'll eventually win. We had a DPS, tank, and healer down during this best attempt, and got him to probably around 20 corruption before the enrage killed us all. And boy was it a purty enrage. He turned all colorful and then said, "F you," and we all died. And once again, I was in an entirely pug group, so it wasn't the most organized pulls, but I hope you've seen most of the mechanics you'll have to deal with. You're going to have to work out how to divide your raid up around the room, get tank swaps going, don't stand in puddles, and then kill or heal up as many adds as you can in the transition. Thanks for watching, and please comment, like, and or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!